Welcome back, everybody, to Hoops HD. This is our final 2017-2018 preseason podcast, our bracket rundown, where we go over our preseason bracket that I've prepared. We're going to break it down and talk about all the teams kind of all at once here. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined by a cast of thousands coming to you Brady Bunch style. We've got David Griggs over there.
Woo-hoo!
Joby Fortson back. He's on the other side, directly below me. I've got Matt Sikowski. We've got John Stalika, and we've got Rocco Miller back. Rocco, great to see you again. Joined us for the first time last week for our Under the Radar show. But just want to give a brief statement of what we are going to be doing tonight, which is, like I said, going over the bracket that I have prepared based on the preseason predictions that I have been posting on the website. Then going to let everybody in our panel here tell me what I've got wrong and how bad I got it wrong and what teams I left out that they think should be in and how badly I seeded some of these teams and all the rest there. We're also going to end the show with more Final Four predictions, and we've got some big news as we're going to be announcing our Team of the People for this season, David. Kind of excited about that.
2017-28. Who's it going to be, Chad?
I think it's going to be Duke.
No, can't be
No?
that. Then we're quitting. Yeah, about time somebody gave those guys some love. Wow. When are they going
They just don't get any attention at all, do they?
Yeah, I know. Wow.
What I'm going to do here, though, is hopefully if this works, pull up on the screen, and if we can all can see it there, the bracket. Is it there?
It is there.
It is.
All right. And what do you think of it so far?
Great job, Chad.
Thanks.
Yeah, looks like you nailed it.
I don't think I think this is the most correct as it's going to look all night, Chad.
Well, let's get right into it. I'm going to start with.
And it's even better, Chad, because there's only 64 slots in it, so it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a couple teams on multiple teams in some of those slots. As we get forward here, but let's go ahead and, if I did this correctly, we should reveal the entire one seeds right now. No, I didn't do that correctly.
Good job, Chad.
All right, here we go.
All right.
There they are.
She's off to its normal start.
These are my proposed one seeds: Villanova, Duke, Michigan State, Kansas. Joby, let me start with you. What are your thoughts on that line?
Actually, I think that's a pretty good line. The one that I am not fully yet sold on is, they seem to have all the pieces, but it is the ACC team, is Duke. I'm not in love with them. I think that can they once again do the one and done thing? Grayson Allen's a good foundational point, but is Bagley for real? Are the freshmen that are going to be put on so much thrust, so much upon, are they going to be there? You might as well stick Kentucky on there if we're going to just do the projected, freshman component. I actually like these other teams that have the maturity element infused in. Yeah, Villanova lost heart, but man, they have that great. I love that as a one seed. Love Kansas and Michigan State. This is the bounce back for Izzo. So I can't fully criticize, and certainly Duke could be the number one overall seed if everything goes right. I just think it's a little premature to list them on the one line.
Rocco, what do you think of Joey's comments about this Duke team? Are they the best team in the nation heading into the season, or up among them, or not?
Yeah, I think they are. I have them as the second best team, and to Joey's point, they could easily fall down to the 2 line or even the 3 line if they struggle early. They're going to be put up to the test next week against Michigan State, so that'll be a tough early test for them against an experienced team. But I think by the end of the year, just looking at what the ACC brings back with the problems at Louisville, with North Carolina not losing a lot of guys from last year and having Barry injured, and Notre Dame really just rallying around Bonzi, I think Duke's still the head and shoulders team out of the ACC. And if you win that league, you should end up on the 1 line or even or as like the top 2. But I don't have a problem with it. Looking at your other ones, I don't really have a big issue with it. I have 3 out of the 4. The only one I don't have is Michigan State. And the reason for that is because I actually think they're going to potentially stumble early. I actually think Duke's going to win that game, but it could go either way. And then I think they're going to have their typical Mix and match lineups throughout November and December, take a couple losses they're not supposed to, possibly lose to Oregon and Portland in that second round game of the PK 80, and then eventually get to the end of the year and be ready for March as a 2 seed. But other than that, I think you're looking okay so far.
Yeah.
And
what's interesting about that? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, David, and then I'll chime in.
I was going to say the 1 seeds typically, one of the staples is that it seems like if you look back through the years, like 19 of the last 21 seeds have all had one thing in common, and that's a road win over another protected seed, a true road win. And while the Legends Classic, is that what are we calling the Champions Classic? Whatever that thing is in Chicago, where whatever it's called now. While those aren't true road wins, those are the kinds of games that you have to win to get on the one line. So even though it's early in the year, right out of the gate in November, we have games that will impact the one line. I just wanted to make that point.
I just want to say the Duke-Michigan State game, I don't agree with you, Rocco. Being how young this Duke team is, I really think that the more veteran Michigan State team wins this game, and ends up being later on in the season that we see Duke come up more. But Matt, let me ask you on this. Is there somebody that I left off of the one line that you really think belongs up there?
A lot of people might be thinking Arizona, but I think partly the schedule and partly issues surrounding that. Like, I'm actually good with them not being on the one line because some of it not their fault. They don't get either USC or UCLA or the 2 other Pac-12 teams that I think will be solidly in the field. They don't get either of them away from home. So
we're going to talk a little UCLA in a few minutes here. We got a little breaking news.
Oh my! I wanted to get Chinese takeout tonight.
7th, people.
let me go to you as I reveal my 2 line here. That's 4 teams, and there is that Arizona team. They actually were 5th overall, along with Kentucky, the other Pac-12, USC, and Wichita State.
No. Wait, what? No, you need to swap Arizona and Wichita.
Arizona and Wichita.
Oh, yeah.
Chad's already messing it up.
Okay, yes, I know. I did not set up a potential Kansas-Wichita State West Regional Final, but I did set those 2 teams up to potentially meet in the national semifinal, David.
Yeah.
Come on.
I really like this Wichita team. We'll get to how much at the end. But as far as them ending up on the one line, I just don't know if their profile will reflect it. They do have a tough out-of-conference schedule, but they're not going to be at complete full strength right away. And I don't think they're going to be as good at the beginning of the year as they probably will be at the end. And that's when they play most of their tough games is at the beginning of the year. But once they get rolling at the end, I could see them ending up with a real good seed and then playing beyond it in the tournament. I like this Wichita team, and I think that them playing Kansas and in Kansas' region would be great.
Stalika, what are your thoughts on these 4 teams?
I thought the nose from the puppet were going to be for USC, but I think if we look at a historical footnote, it would be a preview of a Throwback Thursday. The last time Arizona went through Kansas, and I think a game Sweet 16 or beyond, they went on to win the national title in 1997.
If we want to talk about throwbacks, Rocco, I also did set up a potential Duke-Kentucky regional final.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get your thoughts on Kentucky because they are so young, and I mean they've blown through their exhibition schedule. I could see them dropping some of the games early before they hit their stride that you kind of have to win to get up on a line that high, and by the time they start really gelling and really coming into their own, they'll be playing in the SEC, which is good, but perhaps not 2-seed good. If they were to drop a road game or 2, is their profile going to be a 2-seed at the end of the year?
Yeah, David, I actually think you hit on why their profile has the potential. I think the SEC is extremely deep this year, except for those guys from Baton Rouge. But the SEC is full, and Alabama, which we may get to later, I don't know, obviously has taken some hits over the last week that could really hurt them. But it is a much different SEC. This is an SEC that, Angry Frank's not going to probably make the top half of the conference. And, this in South Carolina's been a fixture there, regardless of the level of their talent. We talked about the Final Four run last year, but regards to the fixture. They're probably not going to be able to do it because there's so much depth with your, everybody from your Texas A&Ms to, those bubble. I mean, it's full of bubble teams like Georgia, et cetera. They're going to get a lot of wins against the field because I think the SEC will put in more than they have in recent years. I think I think they have their opportunities on the road.
Yeah, but when you're talking about the two line, you're talking about more than just wins against the field. You're talking about road wins against the top half of the field.
Yeah,
Rocco, go to College Station and win.
Yeah,
they're going to be in the top half.
Yeah, I think when you look at Kentucky's schedule, despite how young they are, let's go ahead and count them losing to Kansas next week. Despite that, I mean, you look at the rest of their schedule, they're going to get a quality home win against Virginia Tech. They'll get the neutral win over a UCLA team, and who knows where they'll be by that point. And then they've got the Louisville home game that they should win. Everybody else is set up for just, getting that team prepared to play together in the SEC. In the SEC, they're going to have 6 or 7 tournament teams that they'll get home and away chances against, and then they get a great boost to their strength of schedule with the road game at West Virginia. Even if they lose that game, it's not going to hurt their profile. And I think when they bring, if they're able to bring an SEC championship in the regular season and perhaps a SEC championship, which interestingly, the tournament's in St. Louis this year. We'll get to that later. If they can go ahead and get that championship, they're going to at least be a 2 seed, even if they get clobbered at West Virginia and against Kansas next week.
Well,
in my
Matt,
opinion.
let me turn to you as I reveal my 3 line here. This is where we may start getting some people that really did screw me. But I got 2 more SEC teams here with Florida at A&M, as long as in my next Big 12 team in West Virginia and another SEC team in the Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah, it's.
Go
ahead. I don't probably a little higher on this sub. I think that's gonna be a little too high for Miami, even though that consensus has them about there. I'm not as high on them. In that, West Virginia, this looks about right. And that I would have Florida. I would have them as a top SEC team. I really like them. And I wasn't able to make the SEC preview podcast, but they're my pick to win it. And I think the SEC probably will at least get on the 2 line this year. And then A&M, I think, could be 3, 4 seed. Maybe we'll see. I don't know if they'll end up having this many, the SEC 3 teams inside the top 12, but.
Well, that's why I think that the strength of the SEC top to bottom could push a couple of these teams up there and give them a shot for those 3 protected seeds, Joby.
Yeah, I agree. This is where, I mentioned Texas A&M. I think that they are a 3 seed level team. Florida, I think, has a chance to be there. That's your wins for Kentucky. Conversely, likewise, let's say one of them goes into, gets a win versus Kentucky. That's a boost to them. It's a circular component. The team I'm kind of staring at, we didn't talk about, is why is USC on the 2 line? Andy Enfield's done a great job.
Yes.
That's called cart and horse. Way out of front.
Well, let's go back there. Rocco, you're a Pac-12 guy. Do you think USC's a 2 seed?
Yeah, so USC, I understand where you're coming from. They have the talent to be the 2 seed. If they weren't mentioned in the FBI probe, I would probably agree that that they're probably a 2 or a 3. I've got them moved down to a 4. It's almost inevitable, and maybe it's not fair without us knowing all what's going to happen throughout the year. But even if there's really no announcements until April, when the committee comes out with their findings and how they're going to change college basketball, I just think there's going to be enough distractions, and it's going to be really hard for them to have a really consistent season to the point where they're a 2 level seed. I've got them down on the 14 overall line, so a 4 seed. But even I mean, they should win the majority of their games, but I can't help but think they're going to have a game or 2 where they just don't show up, and they just, there's just a lot they're going to have to deal with throughout the year. And I bumped actually Arizona from a 1 to a 2. I had USC at a 3, bumped them down to a 4, and with Miami, I've got them I would have had them a 3 or a 4, and I've got them down at a 5 because of it's just psychologically, I think, inevitable that these teams are going to deal with a lot more than just basketball throughout the year.
And I'll tell you, Rocco, that was something I really considered putting this together is what type of effect. And it was hard for me to really ding teams like Arizona, USC, and Miami when all it's been is, news, as opposed to a school like Alabama, where it's actually affected them on the court, or Louisville, even more so, where it's affected them. The head coach, one of their top recruits, is gone. So those are schools I dinged, and but it's going to take a lot of extra work at these schools to keep the teams together with all the off-court stuff. Salika, let me get your thoughts on this here.
Yeah, I think we're going to be getting as far as teams like Texas A&M and Miami. I mean, we're doing a bit of a leap based on some of the returning talent and in some cases some new incoming talent. I'm looking to teams that are a little more experienced like Florida and West Virginia. And I will give a spoiler alert. I do have one of those teams as one of my Final Four teams that will be revealing towards the end of the podcast.
Okay, that's interesting. David, let you take the first crack at my line here. I know I didn't get as much flack of the three as I thought it would. I'm going to get my line, where I've got two more ACC teams, Virginia and Carolina, Seton Hall, and Jamie Dixon's Horned Frogs.
Well, yeah, Jamie Dixon's Horned Frog. Are you drunk? I mean, I like this TCU team, but to put them up as a protected seed is a little bit. I mean, yeah, that is crazy. You're talking about, winning more road games, well, certainly than they won last year, and maybe what they've won in the last 10 years combined. To get all the way, I think they're in the top half of the bracket. I just don't think they're up in the protected seed range. I find it interesting that you have Seton Hall this high. I really like Seton Hall, but. Virginia is another team that I just didn't think you would be that high on. Now, I could actually justify putting them up here simply because they always seem to finish higher than where they start. I think Tony Bennett might be a good coach. I was saying that last year.
Now I think it's a shame that TCU is not in Pittsburgh, now that I think about it.
Well, yeah.
Well,
that would be funny if Texas Christian was located in Pittsburgh. That really would be something.
Well, for their coach, it'll be a homecoming.
Yeah.
But
you mean in the region? Yeah, that would have been.
Okay, playing in the city of Pittsburgh. I get it. I thought you meant in the West region because that.
I thought you meant you wanted them to just pack the campus up and move it to Pittsburgh.
But Matt, this Virginia team, Joe team here actually is a team that I actually was not as high on until we did some of our preseason podcasts, and I kind of started feeling a lot better about them, and that's one of the reasons that they slid up my bracket. But are you there with this Virginia team?
Oh yeah, actually, I would have had them behind Miami. I think I would have had them on the 3 line. So I'm very high on them. I think they had a little bit of addition by subtraction. I think the players blend together. They have a nice combo of skill and athleticism, and I think they're going to be second in the ACC.
All right, and Rocco, my pick at TCU. Am I completely crazy here? They are 14th by KenPom preseason.
Yeah, I did see that. I got to see TCU in person last year, and I loved what I saw. They blew out my Huskies, which wasn't fun to watch. But I liked how that team, a young team last year, came together. Everybody's back. They added some good pieces. The reason I'm okay with your pick, I actually have them as a 6 seed, is because in the Big 12, somebody's going to rise up to probably this 4 line, even after Kansas and West Virginia, with just all the opportunities to play in such a strong conference. So realistically, when I think you guys said on one of the previous podcasts that Big 12's been the strongest league 4 years in a row. I mean, we've got to probably have somebody on this 4 or 5 line, and TCU is as good a choice as any to do that. One other thing I'd like to say is I agree with you on Seton Hall. That one I really struggled with. They're my last team on the 4 line. It's tough in this area to figure out who's going to get those last few protected seeds. But overall, I'm okay with your 4s. I think your Texas A&M's a little crazy, by the way, but we can get into that a little later.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, like, if you took USC on the 2 line, Texas A&M on the 3 line, and TCU on the 4 line, you have 3/4 of a region of complete insanity. Like, you could have just put them all in the same one there, Chad.
I'm sorry, I left with Virginia. But Joby, is there anybody that I left out of my Sweet 16 that you think was a glaring error?
I mean, Rocco was kind of hitting a very good point. I think the TCU point is an excellent point. Not saying it will be TCU. I would say Texas.
Yeah, Rocco hit an excellent point.
I think Shaka's going to be the one that breaks out a little bit. but I think they're the team that rises up in the Big 12. But someone will rise up from these major conferences. You got to remember that. I look at the 16. I say there is one Big 10 team. I think the Big 10 and only two.
Oh, I agree, Joby. They have a lead over Northwood at halftime right now in their exhibition game.
And the last one barely scratch in. Where is he safe? Where are teams like that? The team that I might have the biggest issue with, and maybe it's a recency bias, so I could be proven to be a complete, completely all wet on it. But North Carolina's looked really bad in their exhibitions. They don't know where they're going to get their scoring now that Page and folks like that are gone. Their entire interior is gone, except for Johnson. And so it's like Jackson's gone. They're not reloading in the same way Duke and Kentucky are with the one-and-done component. They might actually have to take a full step back, similar to what Michigan State did last year, before they're up and running for a protected seat again.
And I kind of agree with you there. That was a tough. I mean, it's hard for me to leave Carolina out of the top 16, but I could see it happening this year. I could see them, ending the season as an 8 or a 9 seed, something like that.
What about Purdue? Was Purdue in your considerations, or
was right up there?
I had them a lot higher.
Rocco, let me stick with you right here and go ahead and reveal the 5 line here, which does not have Purdue. Okay. It does have Texas and Xavier.
Wow.
Along with my second team for the American, Cincinnati, and my West Coast champion, St. Mary's.
Oh, brother.
Am I too high on St. Mary's?
This quality of team, that schedule is you get them a 5 seed, though.
Yeah, the only way to get a 5 is if they enter with 1 loss, and that's probably just going to be against Gonzaga if it happens. I was on Twitter talking about their schedule today, and it looks like their best case scenario is if they play San Diego State in the Wooden Legacy tournament, they need to sweep BYU, and then they need to split with Gonzaga, and then beat Gonzaga probably in the title game to even have a shot at a protected seed. I guess a 5 is possible if they did all that and then lost to Gonzaga twice. But otherwise, they're probably going to be looking at a 6 or 7, or even bubble if they get upset a couple times.
Well, Stalika, you're the Cincinnati guy, and we've got both the Cincinnati schools up here on this line. Your thoughts on whether this is where they belong?
I think you're talking about one Cincinnati school and one Northern Kentucky school this year.
Right. The Northern Kentucky Bearcats, yes.
I think this is the case where I would probably say Cincinnati is ranked the line too low, and I'm sure the puppet would say Texas is ranked the line too high. But in all seriousness, I do think Cincinnati and Seton Hall could probably do an easy swap as where they should be. But St. Mary's, if they're going to wind up this high, I better see only 2 or 3 losses on their overall record this year.
I think Rocco's right. I think for them to be this high, it'd have to be 1, something like 33-1 or something like.
Yeah, TW got an 8 the year they lost 2 games.
But you understand that with that schedule, they can go 33-1
and end up on the 7 line.
Yeah, I think they're really good, but I don't know if they're that. Even against that schedule, I would still probably have them at 2 or 3 losses out of the year.
Okay.
They need St. Joe's to have a good season, that's for sure. They'll probably play them in the second round of the Wooden.
All right,
oh, boy.
David, let me go ahead and show you my 6 line here.
Oh, I can't wait to see it.
Where we got that Purdue team finally, along with their other West Coast team, Gonzaga, Northwestern, and Providence, finishing out the line.
Well, this is interesting because I was doing some research, and this would be the first time that Northwestern has ever made back-to-back NCAA tournaments if they were to get in this year. So that would be fantastic move there. Yeah. I kind of like this Providence team. I think it's going to take them a while to hit their stride, but playing in the Big East will certainly allow them to get the kind of wins that they need to end up on a line like this. Most people might think that you got them a little too high, but I could easily see them ending up here. And I know that this is more of a gut feeling than it is anything I can really point to. I wouldn't be shocked if Gonzaga landed even higher than this. I could see them on the 5 or maybe sneaking into a protected seed. You really like Northwestern. I mean, I like them. I don't know if I like them as much as a 6. I thought I was.
I like them.
Listen,
The thing is, we'll look at the second and third Big Ten teams. So Joby, you mentioned this earlier that this is only the second Big Ten team with Purdue and the third with Northwestern that I've put in this field. My thought here is that the Big Ten, unfortunately, it's got some garbage at the bottom this year. Rutgers, Indiana, Ohio State, Illinois, who lost
Don't say it.
Illinois, and some team that David doesn't want me to mention. And that drags down some of these Big Ten teams, as will happen with some of the Pac-12 teams as well.
I just want to say –
I still think there's enough strength to move them by pure force of will that Purdue – I'm with Rock. I think Purdue's going to be higher. I think they will compete for a protected seed. By the way, your Midwest region – why don't you just flip Florida and Texas A&M and then just declare a nightmare for the University of Virginia with Michigan State looming, Shaka in the second round, and then Florida if you're lucky enough to get there.
Just wait till I've got them in the first round.
Or maybe it's the revenge tour for Tony Bennett. I don't know.
Well, I have a very special 13 seed for them, so you just wait.
Right. Well, right now, speaking of the Big Ten, right now, Tim Miles' team has a 2-point lead at the half in their second exhibition game, and if you look at all of the protected seeds from years past, they won both their exhibition. Nebraska's right on pace. Let's go ahead and move on here. Matt, let me ask you about my 7 line, as I think it should be shown up here. There it is. I've got Vatech, Minnesota, Rhode Island, and Notre Dame here.
Don't see any glaring issues on that. I might have Notre Dame a touch higher. In fact, it would stun me if you could basically almost flip them in North Carolina or something like that. I might still be a touch high for Rhode Island, but this is better than I've seen. Try to put them on the 4 or 5 line. I think Vatech looks pretty accurate. Minnesota, it's roughly where I think they'll be, maybe a seed or 2 lower, but right in the neighborhood. Nothing egregious here, other than Rhode Island, I think might be a little lower.
And the Virginia bracket of hell continues.
Vatech in their region as well. Salika, your thoughts on these 4 teams?
I think if we're going to be looking at an upset in a 2-7 game, I would probably say Rhode Island over Wichita State. I mean, we talk about Wichita State and their experience, but Rhody also made a pretty significant run last year, and they're going to have enough returning pieces that I think they can challenge the Shockers.
Right.
But, again, there's also Buzz Williams, which is, as Joby pointed out, an upset special waiting to happen.
Oh, God, yeah. That would that would not take me long to pick that in my bracket.
Right. And Rhody, I think they're going to run roughshod over the A-10 and get a bloated record. I don't know how healthy their overall profile would be, but this is about where I think they would land, the 6-7 range. And by then, hopefully all of their players and their director of ops will be out of jail, and it'll be all behind them, and they'll be ready to go.
Well, Rocco, we didn't mention
no more concerts.
Minnesota team. Do you think that I've got them seated correctly here?
Yeah, so Minnesota, I'm okay with. I have them at a 5, but that's mainly based on some of the other projections I've seen. I can't wrap my head around them. They didn't look good in the end of the season last year, and I know they made a nice run in the Big Ten tournament, but Middle Tennessee really took it to them in the tournament. And now, they get a lot of those pieces back. The Big Ten, middle of the Big Ten's up for grabs. I think 7, they could easily land there. So I'm okay on that end. I like Virginia Tech. I have them up at a 5. I know exhibition doesn't mean much, but they really took care of South Carolina the other day. And their starting 5 impresses me. I really like their starting 5. So if they keep everybody together, don't get any suspensions, I think they could make a big push this year towards the protected line. And Notre Dame, I think you've got low. I agree with Matt. I think with Bonzi, they're just going to win a lot of games in the point guard Farrell. I got them closer to a 3 or a 4.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, let me go ahead and show my 8 line here. And Joby, let me turn to you as I reveal them there. We see Creighton, Georgia, Baylor, Maryland, and Georgia. David, I did something right, did I not?
You did.
South region.
Well, you did one thing right.
Okay.
But there's another. I don't agree with Creighton there. There's an SEC school that I think should go right there.
I know where David's scratching his head, and I am too. There's no way a McDermott his coach team can survive long enough to get an 8 seed.
Right.
No way.
No,
they're going. They might make this tournament, but there is just no. They are going to crash and burn.
Right. In late January they'll be ranked 6th or 7th or whatever it is, and they'll be like a national story, and then they'll lose out, get to the tournament, and
lose in the first
lose
round.
the first game.
But they'll lose as a 10, 11, or 12. They will not.
Right. Yeah.
Chad, did you hit the Puppets liquor cabinet on this slide?
Go ahead.
Like Baylor is the only one.
I know you don't like Georgia. We've been through that.
I don't really like Maryland. I don't really like Creighton. Like Baylor's the only team I'd have in this field.
Yeah. Maryland.
Georgia. Yeah, you're gonna have to explain Georgia, Chad.
So was Georgia put in there to take Alabama's place after the news last night? Are they just taking Alabama's place? Is that what happened?
Well, I will admit that we saw some teams slide up, and I actually think Alabama was on my 8 line, and Georgia was a team that did slide up a line. So yes, but they were still my 9 line.
So they slid up from the CBI all the way up to the 8 line. Like that's some really good job there. Wow. Yeah.
This is the SEC podcast, and I am really high. For instance, I think the SEC team that's going to surprise out here that you haven't listed yet is I think Arkansas with that 3-guard rotation that's just deadly. I think Arkansas, I don't know why there's so much love for Georgia when you do have a legitimate team worthy of wearing white still left from the same conference.
Well, no, Matt, let me go back and ask you a question. You said you did like here, and that's this Baylor team. They're ranked in the top 25 preseason, though, and I haven't figured that one out yet. Have you?
They're probably one step below that, which that is the 8-9 line's basically one step below top 25. I think they're a solid tournament team. I probably might have them even a seed line or 2 lower. But I think they're a tournament team. I actually, if we're going for a 5th Big 12 team, I might have Oklahoma here, right around this range, up in the 8-9, and I might have Baylor down in the 10-11 range. But no, I think Baylor is a tournament team, so at least there's one team on this line that's going to make the tournament. The other 3, I think are going to look like Illinois on the 7-line prediction last year.
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
Well, in my defense, we are getting into the bubble area when we get to the 8 seeds this early. But Rock, I'm sorry, you had a comment.
Yeah, I mean, I might be going out on a limb here, but I've actually got a team from the SEC that's a 6 that you don't have listed yet, and I know that we went back and forth on this earlier in the off season, but I've got Missouri at a 6, and with Michael Porter Jr., who knows? The kid has never really lost on any level of basketball. Oh, there it is.
Hey, Rocco, I have a question. How did your Huskies do with the equivalent last year?
Well, we didn't have the equivalent because he's got a transfer coming from Canisius that can really shoot the 3. I think he hit 98 3-pointers last year. They've got a 6'10" guy coming in that the Huskies didn't have, Jeremiah Tillman. And then they have their 3 returning leading scorers from an awful team. So we'll see if those guys are any good. But Jonte Porter, his brother, is a stud too. So, I mean, Missouri's definitely got an upper hand than last year's Huskies. And again, I could be completely wrong. I've seen this kid, and he's spectacular. So we'll see.
If Georgia is not on your 8 line, then you're not completely wrong. This is just.
So one of us is going to look ugly at the end of the year.
Right. Wow.
I order as a Markel Fultz. I don't see Quanzo Martin as John Calipari. I see him as the guy that failed to make the tournament with Ivan Rabb last year at Cal. That's what I see. So. I'm not there.
Yeah. I like that.
And I can't put them in this field preseason. You're not going to see them in this field. But let me go ahead.
Chad, don't forget Quanzo. Quanzo did take Cal to a 4 seed 2 years ago, so it's not like 6 seeds out of his range.
Yeah, he had a lot more talent than that.
He had 3 players, 2 future NBA guys, and 1 guy who helped Gonzaga to the championship game.
Right, but 2 of those guys were freshmen, just like the Porters are. So we'll see.
See.
All right, Salika, let me start with you on the 9 line here. We actually see some potential first-round matchups, and there's that Arkansas team that we mentioned, along with Georgia Tech, Butler, and Oregon.
Yeah, I like that. We're probably not going to get a Duke-Maryland second-round matchup. Duke-Butler would be the more compelling rematch here. But I was also going to get back to Chad's other point. It was also nice that you didn't mention Ben Simmons from 2 years ago and their LSU team as another talented freshman, and then crash and burn that season.
Yeah, we've all been burned as fans by these guys, so I don't blame you.
I'll take Quanzo Martin over the LSU or the Washington head coaches for the last few years. That's one thing I will.
But let me finish one other thing.
Ouch.
Just as I was doing a sigh of relief when I see Georgia across from Villanova, you see Oregon. Uh-oh. That just screams of another trap game for Villanova were that ever to come to fruition.
For me, that's just another team that's also not going to be in the field come March. But
so Villanova's got a pretty easy road here. I mean, they really struggled in the round of 32 in years past, but wow, Chad's got them set up quite nicely.
Yeah, I mean, you got TCU in the Sweet 16, which we all agree is Miami.
David, we do address this Georgia Tech team though, with the news today that news recently about Kogi and suspended indefinitely for receiving benefits, and I'm assuming at this point that he's going to miss just a few games. Obviously, if he's going to be out for the season or the majority of it, I would definitely revise them way down.
Yes, this is an interesting selection. Josh Pastner, great recruiter, not much of a bench coach at Memphis. At least it always felt like they were falling short of expectations. Not real excited when Georgia Tech hired him, but I thought last year was by far, even though not his most successful year in terms of wins, I thought it was his best coaching job. And I don't think Georgia Tech in the field is all that insane. It's not like you took Georgia or something. I mean, that would be nuts. But like you said, there's questions about their personnel and how long some key players are going to be out. I don't really know all the details, or I can't guess specifically how the NCAA is going to handle it. Typically, when you're talking about improper benefits, if the value is $1,000 or less, the players have to pay back the money and serve what is generally a limited suspension, a game, 2 games, normally no more than 3. If you're talking more than 1,000, but less than 10,000, the rule is standard. No matter the sport, you're out a third of the year. So in football, you're 4 games. Basketball, that would be 9 games. Baseball, 20, depending on how long the season is, and you have to pay the money back to charity. That's typically how it works. If it's more than 10,000, you might be done for good, not just for the year, but for good. So we'll see how that plays out, how much they'll miss. But I don't think they would miss the whole year. I don't know that for certain. I just don't think that. But speaking of other teams in the news lately, I don't know if they're going to make your field at all, but Georgia Tech's first opponent, did what happened today influence where you had them, Chad? Or are we going to get to that later?
Who's Georgia Tech's first opponent there? Yes. We will be getting to Georgia Tech's first opponent probably in the next line or two here, but we didn't really address this. Joby, how about them? Did they at least belong in the field?
Which one? Who was it?
Butler.
Butler. Oh, I like this Butler team. Okay. Yeah, I think yes. Losing your coach in the offseason like that is always tough, but they still have a core. There's a NCAA, a very solid NCAA tournament team from last year, and I think that they will cruise on and do what Butler seems to always do, which is plug and play and replace when a very good, outstanding coach leaves. And we'll see. We'll see if University of Milwaukee might not be the best. They were okay from
they were 10th.
Yeah.
They were not okay. They were bad.
That was with a roster full of guys who could have been playing in the Y. So
yeah,
and they were still 1 game from the NCAA tournament last year.
Well, Rocco, you're a Pac-12 guy. Matt does not think Oregon even belongs in the field. What do you think about the Ducks?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my feelings wouldn't be hurt if he was right. But I've got him in the field. I think McIntosh is a solid player coming over from Illinois State. Troy Brown is the kind of guy that can take over a game, especially against anybody in the Pac-12, except for maybe Arizona or USC. But I think the Pac-12 should be good enough to get 5 in, and Oregon is my third place team at this point. Most of that comes from Dana Altman. I think that no matter what kind of hand he's dealt, he figures out a way to get those guys humming by like February. And, so even if they are a little sluggish, we're talking in January and they're an NIT team, they could quickly turn that around come February, March. So right now I've got them in, but again, I will not have my feelings hurt if Matt is correct.
Well, David, I know you're going to like my 10 line here at least. Let me show it to you. We got Mississippi State, Michigan, Nevada. Who's that playing Notre Dame?
That's Vermont. That's an interesting matchup, and I think Vermont could absolutely land up there. Now, I think that they have 3 tests. One's against Kentucky. I forget who the other 2 are, but they essentially need one of.
Marquette.
Is Stalika here with their schedule? But I think they have 3 chances to get a solid tournament caliber win if they get one of them and then avoid stubbing their toes or really blowing their heads off the rest of the way with just a horrendous loss. Yeah, I don't think the 10 line is way out there for them. Nevada, I'm not nearly as high on, and Mississippi State, I think you're drunk.
Joby, am I drunk on Mississippi State?
No, I think Mississippi State is a bubble team this year.
I think you're drunk too.
I have them on the right side of that bubble, but they are in this group of Georgia, Arkansas, Mississippi State.
They're in the yes, they are in that group with Georgia.
Yeah, and they have high scores. A pair of guards they're going to be able to really depend on. That Ole Miss can be even mentioned in this. There are a lot of SEC teams that are going to be able to get wins this year. And then once you get to that point, they start beating each other and giving each other quality wins. Some are going to float up to the right side of the bubble. And Mississippi State is as good a shot as anybody. They on that.
Well, Rocco, I have Nevada in here. Whether you go San Diego State or Nevada, what I'm saying is that I think that the Mountain West champion is a few lines better than they've been the last few years. Would you agree with me or no?
Yeah, I'm definitely okay with this. I've actually got Nevada as the champion as well, and I've got them inside the bubble if they're not. I know that, again, exhibition games are kind of dumb to bring up, but San Diego State, I think, just destroyed USC in a scrimmage yesterday. So I got to consider them a pretty legit contender. And if they can both – San Diego State can win the tournament, I think they can both get in. Nevada's got a great schedule, and they got Rhode Island coming to town on Monday. That's a perfect opportunity for them to get a quality one. They got a few more after that. But I'm still stuck on this SEC thing. Before I get into that, I love the Vermont pick at 10. I really hope that happens. And if they can beat Kentucky right off the bat, like we kind of joked about on the last podcast, that would make that possible. But yeah, the Mississippi State, Georgia, before, Arkansas and, you have Arkansas, I'm sorry, but before, I won't mention their name, and maybe these are just replacements for Alabama and Auburn. But I do like that you have 2 SEC teams. I just don't agree with the 2 that you chose.
Well, I'll tell you that I was a lot higher on both Alabama and Auburn before they started getting players thrown out.
Yeah.
And all that.
So you were high on them until the FBI started.
Yes, the FBI really screwed up the SEC for me. But sleeping,
I mean, if it was going to happen to anyone, it would be the SEC. I mean, if you'd have asked me what conference is most likely to be wrecked by the FBI, SEC would have been my answer.
Who knows if the Pac-12 will feel the pain later? We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to be dominoes if it happens.
Yeah.
Well, I think the Puppet had mentioned a while back he was interested in Vermont's schedule. They're going to have a holiday tournament in the Bahamas that includes Bradley, probably a game against Coastal Carolina, but pay attention to this 5-game road trip that's going to be greeting them after Thanksgiving at Yale, at Richmond, at Bucknell, at Marquette, and then at Northeastern. So there are definitely a few chances for Vermont to make hay, at least as far as the power numbers go.
Right.
But I'd say if they were really going to
that Vermont Bucknell game may be the under the radar game of the year. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm curious to see if Bucknell landed inside your bubble. I really am.
Well, we're going to find out very soon here. We didn't really discuss Michigan. Matt, do you at least agree with me that Michigan belongs in the field?
Yeah, no, this 10 line looks a hell of a lot better than those 8 and 9 lines. Like, these are actual teams that have in my tournament field. If maybe Vermont a touch high, might have them as like a 12 or 13, but these are tournament teams. Like, that's a vast improvement over the 8 and 9 lines where there are a whole lot of not tournament teams.
Well, I have to give somebody some love here. David, my left line, Oklahoma, UCLA, Central Florida, and Oakland getting in above Bucknell, actually, as in terms of the under the radar.
Wow.
I'm very high on the Golden Grizzlies this year.
I am. And in that game against Gonzaga, I would be tempted to take them. I noticed that we still haven't gotten down to the first four, so these are all teams that are assuming you did this right, Chad.
Yes.
You didn't mess it up, did you?
These teams are all inside the bubble. Next 4 teams up will be the first 4. So
Conference USA or not? No, never mind. Former conference. Just ignore what I just said. I'm going to.
Joby, let's talk a little UCLA today. A little breaking news. They have a little problem in that 3 of their players out there in China getting ready for the Georgia Tech game got arrested for shoplifting in another country.
In what another country? This isn't getting caught in Canada. Okay, let's make it very clear.
Yeah.
This is China, and China. The good news for them is, Yao Ming has made China a basketball-liking country. But I bet you the Chinese leadership actually knows what the Ball family is. But that being said, wow, this is going to. I don't know how this is going to turn out. This could turn out to be nothing. It could. China could just wipe but China could also really make a big deal about this. This could blow up. I mean, and this could be a situation where a particular leader tweets about it, for God's sakes, at some point. I mean, he's in Asia. Maybe he goes visits them in jail, as a peace offering. It's also so stupid. People don't realize China is an authoritarian country. Yes, we do trade with them. Yes, they build a lot of stuff for us. But this is not a country where you want to screw around in. I don't understand the lack of knowledge and understanding around that fact. Oh, kills me.
I would be very, very concerned for them if wow. I mean, they may not get to come back on the plane with the team. If they might, and it might just be something like, well, they dodged a bullet there. But there was a whole TV series on National Geographic that dealt with issues like this called Locked Up Abroad. You don't want – it's just such a – what? My only question is, what the hell are you thinking? But anyway, as far as this line goes, Central Florida, I like that pick, who is not in Conference USA and who I was not about to say was in Conference USA.
Well, Rocco, let me ask you about the UCF team. I was very high on them. I would have had them a lot higher until Aubrey Dawkins went out for the season. I still think with Taco Fall, they're good enough to make the field, though.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I've got them on the outside looking in right now just because of the Dawkins injury. I would have had them in without that. So I'm good with it. Overall, I think I like your Oklahoma pick. I've got them in. I think I've got them on my 9. And UCLA, did they take a bump today just based on the news, or were you having them at 11 no matter what?
I had them at 11 no matter what. I did not adjust for the news today, no.
Okay, cool. And I like Oakland at 11. I hope that happens. I've got them, I think, at a 13, just because I think they'll have a couple slip-ups in league that will hurt their resume. But overall, I'm okay with it. I actually have UCLA up at a 9 as well. And I guess I'll just hold tight till you show me your 12s before I ask more questions.
Well, Mike, let me go ahead and Matt, let me start with you on show the 12 line here. There's 2 teams that are going to be on here that are auto bids. The other 4 are the first 4, which are so the auto bids were Harvard and Bucknell, but my first 4, St. Louis, and
actually, I have
Oh,
I have
Florida.
FSU and Stanford in my field. Stanford I've got actually a little bit higher than this. The other two, yeah. I mean, a second A10 team, like I said, I did pick Davidson in the A10 preview, on Penn State, but then like the fact that you actually have two teams in your field from the first four beats your 8 and 9 lines.
Stalika, hold on. You want to comment on?
Oh, my God.
I mean, I have to applaud Chad's courage on two of the picks here. I've said Penn State is a team that certainly has a chance to make noise, given how, I guess, they have a young core of player themselves that are going to be sophomores this year. I thought they might be a year away. We've also got St. Louis, who is another team that's relying on a couple of very talented freshmen. I think they're going to finally wrest the Arch Baron Cup away from Dayton, but I don't think they're going to be making the tournament quite yet. Notice how we have not mentioned the Louisville Cardinals yet.
Yeah.
Do you care to explain them?
I have no problem explaining them. The Louisville Cardinals, I do not. I think that, and I said this when we did our ACC preview, that's how bad I think losing your head coach and going with the Guy Padgett, who has never coached a game in his life, and on top of that, just the whole mess of what's going on off court. I will not put Louisville in my field until they prove to me that they can actually win games. And so come middle of January, if they have a strong record, I'll reconsider it. But I just think the off-court turmoil from everything that happened, once they lose a game or two early in the season, the whole thing may just implode there. Rocco, you wanted to discuss this, my teams here. Yeah, a question for me.
Well, I think you're bold. I think you're bold for putting Penn State in. But I mean, they've got a roster that can get them there, and they are way, way overdue. I have a lot of Penn State friends, so they'll be happy to watch this. Yeah, I can't necessarily agree, at least on paper so far. St. Louis would be really fun to watch. They've got talent. It's just a lot of things are going to have to come together to make that big of a jump from last year. Florida State, I can't trust Leonard Hamilton. Even though they had a great year last year, they lost a lot. I know they have another 5-star coming in now to carry the load, but I've got them out. Stanford, I love that pick. I actually have them fourth in the Pac-12. Reed Travis is underrated nationally. They've got a guy that could have been a Husky this year, Dejon Davis, who I'm excited to watch. I wish he would have been more in purple, but he'll do great things for Stanford this year. So that's kind of my take on your last four, but I have some questions for you now. Wisconsin, Texas, Iowa, SMU, where are we at with those guys? Especially Wisconsin, I was surprised not to see this.
Texas,
okay. I'm sorry. I see Texas.
Yeah,
I'm sorry about that.
I'll second Rocco on Wisconsin when you're putting Penn State in. Yeah, Wisconsin, we know they're not the team from, a couple of years ago, but there's a system. It's almost like it's a plug and play. I think they're going to be getting wins that we don't think about, how others talk in similar systems, so we might as well say it. Virginia, gets wins that are unexpected to go up seed lines. Wisconsin's the same. Virginia's a little more talented than Wisconsin this year, but Wisconsin, I think, if you're going to reach for a final Big Ten team, the Badgers, I actually would have the Badgers not even the first.
Yeah.
Or Iowa.
Chet.
Yeah.
Iowa. Very good point, Rocco.
Yes.
Right. Well, Joby, first of all, I did just reveal my top four teams out, and Wisconsin was my top team. They were the very next team up, but David,
Chad,
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, can we remove this real quick? I have a video very quick video here that I think you need to watch. So let's see. Share computer sound. Here we go. It is. Can we see this here?
When people are fixing up older homes, they often want to know, how can I tell if my house has lead paint? The first clue is the specific age of the house. If it was built in 1979 and later, there should be no lead paint.
He has Maryland in his field, David. I don't know what your problem is.
He's got Penn State in his field. He's got Georgia in his field.
There it is again. Well, let me tell you what. Rocco, let me go to you here. I'm going to show the other 12 teams. There's more teams I considered here. St. Bonaventure, Temple, Alabama, Missouri, St. John, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Marquette, Ole Miss, Iowa State, Davidson, UConn, and SMU should have been on that list if also considered as well. These are all that were right there for me that I thought about, but ended up going with these 64.
Yeah, and I mean those are teams I have all listed as well on my considerations. I'm surprised you don't have Iowa anywhere. I know they have that injury that just came up, but most of their core will be together the first few weeks, and a lot of people are high on them. Outside of that, I don't really see any glaring omissions. Maybe some consideration should be given to Utah, but I mean they've got a lot of mysteries, so I don't really blame you for not putting them up. And then go ahead.
Yeah, let me just defend leaving Iowa not even on this list here. Yeah, they got 4 out of 5 starters back. The one that's gone is Peter Jock. And by the way, nationally ranked in defense last year, nationally in defense, 299th in the nation. That's my problem with Iowa.
That's their style.
I don't think this is a tournament team. I don't think that they're really going to be that close to a tournament team.
Well, the good news is they're not playing Omaha this year.
Oh, there you go. Some good news.
Yeah. I was also going to go back to Wisconsin for a moment, if I may. I think one of the reasons we don't see him this year is what kind of recruiting is Greg Gard going to – I guess what kind of fruit are we going to see from his recruits now that the only notable holdover from the previous regime is going to be Ethan Happ?
I'll speak to that because like, he has a very good freshman class in. It's a problem between Happ and that. And that's probably as much on Bo Ryan not being around in that, or like being around only halfway in spirit his last year or two for the recruiting. So I think in time, Gard will probably do it, although for as good as I do like this freshman class of his, he's got nothing in 2018 right now.
Well, David, your thoughts on my teams. Oh, sorry, Rocco first, then David.
Oh, I just had a question for I think on the Pac-12 podcast, Stalika was calling for the Beavers to be in the tournament, but I don't see them anywhere on here. Stalika still feels strongly about the Beavers?
Stalika, am I wrong on the Beavers?
I said they would be improved. I didn't say they would necessarily be in the NCAA tournament.
Well, they could improve and not finish in the top 250.
They could win 6 games and be improved. Come on.
But I don't think they necessarily have to buy their way into a tournament like the CBI either just to experience the postseason.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. Joby, anything that you else want to rip me apart for here?
No, certainly the 2 teams that I think you should be watching is, let's see how Holtman does it at Ohio State. I know there's a little bit of newness and all of that. Let's see it. Let's see if he catches the fire here.
That was
the other one, and the other one is an honest one. I think will be this year's probably Georgia Tech, as in the ACC team that kind of comes out of nowhere, that everybody gets high on, and then they get some wins and they lose and fall just out. I think Wake Forest and Danny Manning is that team this year. I think Wake. We will be talking about Wake in some form of the bubble. They might be on the bad side at the end of the year, but I think we'll be talking.
Well, they got Crawford and Woods, and I think that a couple of guards like that can help win you some games. But I agree with you that they could be that surprise team. I just don't think heading into the season I could see them there. Matt, any other thoughts on my field of the at-largers at least?
Louisville, I know you're like, I can't see Louisville missing. I'm actually really high on Temple. I'd have them as a third American team. And then I'm probably closer to Rocco and Mizzou than you. Like, I definitely have them in the field. I think I have them above the first 4. And that Homer pick, of course, I got Marquette in my field, but I think quietly the guards. That's where Howard and Rousey. I really like that backcourt, and Sam Hauser I think takes a huge step up. And speaking of why Wisconsin's going to miss the tournament, but I think Marquette's in there. It's that Wisconsin did not recruit Sam Hauser for some ungodly reason, thankfully, because he would have gone to Wisconsin if they gave him a hint of interest.
Thank you, Matt. Marquette definitely is too low on my list as well. You're not allowed to overhype it.
Yeah,
but I'll ride that. I'll ride that those coattails.
I like Ohio State. Every year there's a team that doesn't. Well, multiple teams that don't even start off receiving a single vote in the human polls that kind of explode onto the scene. Baylor starting off unranked last year and getting really high. Did they get all the way up to 1? Or they got
they were number one at one point.
They were number one like at 4, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like Ohio State that much, but they are a team that I think is going to greatly exceed expectations this year.
Well, I'll tell you what, David, while I'm with you here, let's go ahead and reveal the rest of the field here. Let me start with 13 line, Joby. This is you as we see your Cavs getting the Lopes in their first game.
Wow. That's just cruel.
UAB there is a Conference USA champ, Missouri State and College of Charleston as your Colonial champ. Moving down to 14 line. No.
Nice going.
Let's try this again. Moving down to the 13 line. Western Michigan, Texas Arlington, South Dakota State, and Hawaii, who I like in the Big West. Nobody else seems to pick them in the Big West, but at least I did. 15 line, we got SFA, Samford getting Kentucky, Lipscomb against
That's
USC.
An interesting matchup, by the way. Scott Padgett, Samford coach, Kentucky, former Kentucky standout player. A little bit of a tidbit there, yeah.
And then just my 16 line real quick as well. We got Morgan State and Fairfield avoiding the first 4. Asheville, SFPA, Texas Southern, and Montana State as my first 4 teams on the 16 line. So, David, any thoughts on the bracket as a whole as it's here?
I'd say some of it's okay, but you really need to get your house checked for lead with some of these picks. Wow.
Rocco, anything else on the bracket?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was maybe a little hard on you, but I think it's a fun bracket. I'm glad that you have Texas as a 5. I'm high on them. Sorry I missed that earlier, but otherwise, yeah, I don't. I guess on those last ones you revealed, I can't see Hawaii getting to a 14 unless they knock off Nevada or Miami or Utah. Other than that, they play nobody unless it's in the Diamond Head Classic. And then they get into Big West play. I think Big West is preseason 29 out of 32, so they're probably destined to a 16 or play-in game if they get the auto bid. But other than that, it was fun.
And that could be right. I mean, sometimes the 14, 15, 16 lines, it's tough to really do much.
Right.
My thought is I liked Stalika's media bracket a lot better.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me quickly run through both Joby and Matt. Any other thoughts on the field? Joby, let me start with you.
No, I think it's pretty solid. Yeah. Hey, you reach for some schools, but they're going to be, this bracket will look like nothing what the real thing will be in 4 or 5 months. And guess what? Nobody in the world can make one that'll look like the real thing in 4 or 5 months.
If it comes out exactly like this,
why weren't we talking about, and then fill in the blank, in state, or some random team,
Yeah, Joby's right about that. I actually watched the one you guys did last year for the preseason, and I noticed South Carolina wasn't even in the field, and then they went to the Final Four. So
yeah.
we'll have another one of those stories this year, I'm sure.
Oh, they're maybe not a Final Four, but yeah, there are every year. Like right now, there's a team not receiving any votes, not on anyone's radar, and when Nebraska makes the Final Four, everyone's going to be surprised.
So we're doing the CBI preview today.
Sorry, Sleeker, you had a comment, and then we're going to move on to the next couple.
Yeah, I was going to say Boise has been Death Valley for higher seeded teams in the past. I mean, could you say College of Charleston in the Sweet 16, Grand Canyon and Bucknell possibly facing in the second round? I'm sorry, Joby, but I guess that is the bracket of hell for a Virginia fan right there.
I did not do Virginia any favors at all with it. I gotta tell you, but let's run through each of you here and tell me, not based on this bracket necessarily. In fact, we could pull this down, but just based on your thoughts going into the season, who do you see as the Final Four and your national champion this year?
I would say 3 of your number 1 seeds would fit it, with Villanova, Kansas, and I do like Michigan State. I am high on Michigan State. The team and you heard me in the Big 12 preview say, will they knock off Kansas? I think you're going to see 2 Big 12 teams in the Final Four. West Virginia, Huggy Bear. I love when you get a senior point guard who can run the show like Javon Carter That's the reach. I feel like you got to have one reach. You can't just pick all across the board favorites. West Virginia, that's the one that will surprise you.
Who's going to win it all?
Villanova. I love this Villanova team. Okay. Jay Wright now has gotten the monkey off his back from a couple of years ago. Yeah, they could lose in the round of 32 as they always do, it seems like. All they have to do is get past the round of 32, and they got made.
Matt, who's your Final Four and your national champion?
I have Villanova, I have Michigan State, I have Wichita State, and I have Florida.
Oh, stole my thunder.
Okay.
And then, well, Joby, I thought I was going to be on a limb picking Villanova to win it all, but I am now the second person picking them.
We have 2 Nova champions. Everyone has Nova and Michigan State in so far. Stalika, how about you?
I agree with Joby in that West Virginia gets into the Final Four, but I think the conventional teams that are probably going to join them are going to be Kansas, Duke, and my eventual national champion, the Michigan State Spartans.
First person mentioned Duke. 3 people in before somebody mentions the preseason #1 team there. Rocco, how about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to. I'm really close to Matt. I've got Wichita State coming out of my top left bracket, upsetting Kansas in the regional final, and then I've got West Virginia, which I agree with Joby on, and then I've got Michigan State and Villanova in the Final Four, and then for the championship, I've got Michigan State over Villanova. Some Spartans taking it down, agreeing with Stalika there.
Well, I guess, Dave, before I get to you, my Final Four, I agree about Villanova, Michigan State, and Kansas. I think all 3 of them are in. My 4th team that's in my Final Four is Wichita State, and Wichita State's national champion. I'm going out on a limb.
Yes.
The Shockers win it all this year. Why the hell not? If 3 of us already put it in the Final Four, why can't they just take it all? David?
Well, I have Kansas and Wichita State in the Final Four. I don't know if I can have Wichita State winning it all, but I do think they'll get to the Final Four. I also like Duke, and I also like Villanova, and if I could pick a 5th team, it would probably be Michigan State. In fact, I'm kind of going back and forth between Michigan State and Duke. I think the Spartans are pretty good, but for now, I'll go with Duke, and just to annoy me, I think Duke wins it all again.
Duke wins it all. Well, I guess on that note, we only have one thing left to do for the show, and that would be to do what everybody's been waiting for here. That is reveal our 2017-2018 Team of the People. David, what is the Team of the People?
Well, I was going to ask you that. How did this start? Well, I guess a few years ago, we decided we wanted to we were working on the conference previews, and we came up with NJIT, who was not in a conference at the time. They were just kind of an independent. And you and I kind of decided, we need to sort of give this – I mean, there's teams just out on an island. They're in a really unique situation. They recently transitioned up. They had a really rough transition. I think, didn't they lose 70 in a row, or if not in a row, 70 out of 71 or something crazy. But despite being independent, despite having absolutely nothing going for it, we're looking at this team and you're like, you know what? They're not bad. Not only are they not bad, they might be able to actually make a postseason tournament. So we decided to follow them all year, give them all the coverage that Hoops HD could, and zealously root for them. And we got really attached to them. It was a lot of fun. Their coaches were tweeting at us. We were tweeting at them. We were watching their games, covering them. And I forget exactly how it happened, but I think we just blurted out on a show that they were the people's team, the team of the people. So that was kind of how it started. The next year we did it again, Grand Canyon. Again, a team in a really unique situation. They were transitioning up, but despite being a transitional team, we thought they could compete for and maybe possibly win the WAC. And again, lots of fun. Grand Canyon into a postseason tournament, rather deep in that tournament. Last year, we had New Hampshire, not as good as the previous 2 teams, but they did win, at least to us. They won the preseason NIT. Remember, we sent them that banner, Chad?
Yes, we did. We sent them a banner. They had the best record among everybody that competed in the preseason NIT, despite not being in the bracketed, section of it. But
Yeah, so we declared them the
kind
winners.
Of fizzled out with them a little bit at the second half of the season when they struggled. But we are now ready for a team that has a very unique situation this year. And we're going a little bit away from things that we've done in the past for this team of the people. David, let's go ahead and drum roll, and we'll show it here.
Oh wait, did I just spoil it? Okay, here it is. And it is the Cal Baptist Lancers. Okay. Can everybody see that on the screen? It's Cal Baptist. Okay. They are we've never done this before. They are not a Division I program. They want to transition up. They will do that next year. The reason they are not allowed to do it this year is because they have not even existed long enough to transition up. They're ranked 14th in the nation in Division II. Real unique situation. They will become full members of the MAC and start their transition next year. We think that they might actually be good enough to not only be relevant, but maybe win the Division II national championship. All the teams that have transitioned up lately, none of them have ever really done that. So here we are. It's not just like their hashtag is Lance Up, but they're not going to be the last champs, but they will be the Lance champs. And here they are, team of the people, the Cal Baptist Lancers.
All right, Dave, pull that down for a second here.
Yes.
Yeah, and we had a little bit of noise there come through the screen. But I'm going to also toss in here. This is from their website. This is the schedule, Cal Baptist schedule, beginning this Friday.
Yes.
It's Cal State Dominguez Hills, then Cal State Los Angeles. Huge one coming up November 18th. UC San Diego. The UC San Diego knocked them out in the second round of the D2 tournament last year. So huge revenge game coming up there.
Yes.
Then they moved Preseason to the Pac-West here. Games against Chaminade, famous for hosting the Maui Invitational. Loma beat them twice last year in a pair of upsets. So some more revenge there in those games. All these games here. Hawaii.
Yeah, you know what I like about this? You see to that right-hand column there, we see the watch tab. You can watch these games. We will be watching these games. Think about them. Like, there it is.
There is March 1st through 3rd, the Pac-West tournament. Beyond that, the D2 tournament. And beyond that, the D2 national championship as they move on their way up to Division I next year, joining the WAC, competing with the Lopes, and we'll see what happens there.
Cal Baptist, Division II Cal Baptist, the team of the people.
Well, and Rocco, you're out there in California. How excited are people in Riverside for Cal Baptist being the team of the people?
I think everybody's fired up. I think they know it's their last chance at a championship until 5 years from now, so they got to do it this year.
Yeah.
So I have a couple cousins that graduated there, and I know they're excited.
And Stalika, we have a potential budding Division I rivalry between them and UC Riverside.
I thought you were going to mention Longwood versus Cal Baptist, the Lancer Cup.
That's also a rivalry.
Yeah. But David, we really need to get a UC Riverside Cal Baptist battle going on here, don't we? Why aren't these teams playing yet?
I don't know why they're not playing yet. I mean, I don't know why they weren't playing before Cal Baptist instituted the program. I mean, that's really how soon they should have been playing. It is Cal Baptist. I wonder how they are going to take to me, David Griggs, the drunken puppet of the airwaves.
I guess on that note, I do want to thank everyone for joining us. This is this is our final 2017-18 preseason. We'll be back next week, beginning with our regular schedule of Hoops HD reports under the radars. As we get into January and February, we'll have bracket rundown shows, tons of content, articles on the site on a daily basis. So thanks again for joining us, everyone, and we'll be talking to you again.
Lance up. Lance.